Many of our beliefs were formed before we were old enough to question them. Eventually, those messages, they stop feeling like messages and they stop feeling like beliefs and they start feeling like facts. And here is the dangerous thing about a story that feels like a fact. You don't question the facts. You live inside them. You build your career around them. You resign jobs because of them. And you never stop to ask, where did this come from? So the question is not whether the protection made sense then. It probably did. The question is whether it is still serving you now. So today we are going to follow that thread, because the subconscious mind does not just shape one moment, it shapes a pattern. Write it down, because what you can name, you can begin to change. There was a job with my name on it. Literally. I was already doing this job, and every day I was showing up and I was delivering results. And when this job was formally advertised, because I was in an acting position, I did not apply for it. And this was not because I was not qualified. I was fully qualified for it. It's not because I didn't want it, but because something inside me had already decided before I even picked up the application that it was not for me, that it was what a pattern looks like. Not a bad decision made once, but a quiet belief running in the background that makes the same decision for you again and again before you are even aware that it's happening. So today we will go to find that pattern. So welcome back to season 2 of Rewire with Rose. We are still on the R and we are talking about reflecting. So reflect. Last week we talked about the gap between knowing and believing. We talked about the first class honors that I could not receive. The Maxwell maths patients who could not see the surgery that had already changed their faces. The 95% running quietly underneath everything that your conscious mind decides. So today we are going to follow that thread, because the subconscious mind does not just shape one moment, it shapes a pattern. And a pattern is not one bad decision. It is the same decision made the same way for the same hidden reason. So showing up across years, across jobs, across rooms, until someone names it. And today, I'm going to name mine. And I want to help you to name yours. I'm Rose. Some years back, I worked at a local bank in Kenya. And I remember finding the culture deeply uncomfortable. People were loud about their achievements. They talked openly about what they had delivered. They made sure their supervisors knew exactly what they had done. And I found it almost repulsing. My belief, which I held firmly and genuinely, was that my work should speak for itself. That if I delivered the results would be seen. That I did not need to announce myself. And I was already a strong performer. And I had 2 conversations during that time that I've never forgotten to date. The first was with one of my senior colleagues at the time. And I remember he pulled me aside one day and he told me he had noticed me and noticed my work culture. He said, he noticed I was hardworking, I was a great performer. And then he said something that stopped me. He said that alone will not get me far. And he explained to me how he approached his career. He would get a new role, he would read the JD very carefully, he would identify his supervisor's top priorities, and he would begin with those. And often, he would meet his annual targets within 6 months. Then he would go back to his supervisor and tell the supervisor, I'm ready for additional responsibilities if any arise. And that is how he had grown up to that point. And that is how he had built his career. Deliberately, visibly, and intentionally. He encouraged me to do the same. And that same colleague is now the group CEO of one of the local banks. So obviously that worked. I remember listening to him and thinking, I wish I could be that brazen, And then thinking, others can do that, but not me. And the second conversation I had was with my supervisor at the time. And I told him I had realized that corporate was not the place for me, that I did not enjoy the culture of having to announce my achievements, that it just felt wrong to me, against how I had been raised. And I remember he listened keenly, and then he said something that I was not expecting at the time. He said, I have noticed that, and that is why I beat your drums for you. He had seen what I would not do for myself, and he had been doing it on my behalf. And instead of feeling grateful, I felt uncomfortable, like I was a burden. Why would I have to have somebody beating my drum? And like I had asked somebody to carry something I should have been carrying myself. Or to be more honest, like the spotlight he was shining on me was exactly the spotlight I had been trying to avoid my entire career. I resigned shortly after, and I told myself that it was the culture, that development work suited me better, that I needed an environment that was aligned with my values, and that was partly true. But I also took the pattern with me, because it is what patterns do. They do not stay in the building when you resign. They travel with you. In the development sector, the same pattern happened again. So, a different room, a different title, a different context, but the same choice at the center. When a management role I was already performing was advertised, I did not apply for it. And when my boss called me and asked me why I had not applied, I told him I preferred technical work, that managing people felt like too much responsibility, that technical work kept me accountable to myself and that I could control, which was safer, which was, in the language of the pattern, my home. The deer goes home to its mother, safe, invisible, intact. My mother used to say something to us when we were growing up, in our language, by the fire. And she would say, the scared deer went home to its mother. This is direct translation. The courageous one was eaten by the lions. And she said it often, she repeated, about how we should carry ourselves in school and about how we should carry ourselves through the world, that we should never be daredevils and we should not put ourselves in unnecessary danger. The ones who stood out, who drew attention, who made themselves visible, they paid a price. The safe ones, they went home to their mothers. And she was not trying to make me small. She was not trying to make me small. She was just trying to keep me safe. And that proverb has kept generations of women in my family safe. So it is wisdom. And it was love. And my nervous system received it as law. And it printed it as law. Do not stand out. Do not make yourself visible. Do not draw the lion's attention. Go home, be safe, stay intact. So I never participated in a single strike while at the university. Not one demonstration. Even when the cause was right. Even when my peers were marching. The scared deer went home to its mother. And for a long time, I called that wisdom. I called it discernment. I called it humility. But sitting here today and tracing this pattern across the bank, across the management role I did not want to take up, across the first-class honors I told people to stop celebrating, I can see what it actually was. It was a survival instruction. And it was written into me before I was old enough to question it. And therefore it became law. And running quietly, consistently, faithfully in every room I have walked into. I say that to say that many of our beliefs were formed before we were old enough to question them. Messages from our parents, from the teachers, from the culture that we grew up in, from the faith community that shaped us, from the stories that were told by firelight by our mothers and our grandmothers. Eventually, those messages, they stop feeling like messages, and they stop feeling like beliefs, and they start feeling like facts. My work should speak for itself. That felt like a fact to me. It felt like wisdom. It felt like integrity, like character. But it was just a story, repeated often enough to feel true. A story the subconscious mind has been telling since long before I sat in that bank. And here is the dangerous thing about a story that feels like a fact. You don't question the facts. You live inside them. You build your career around them. You resign jobs because of them. And you never stop to ask, where did this come from? Is it still true? Is it still serving me? And here is how you start to find your pattern. Ask yourself 3 questions and write them down. Answer them as honestly as you can. And the first question is this: where else has this shown up? The management role was not the first time I chose to be invisible. The bank was not the first time. The first-class honors was not the first time. The same choice had been made many times before, in smaller moments, in earlier rooms. If you look back at your career, your relationships, or your money, you'll find the same choice repeated. Not the same situation, but the same choice. Finding those repetitions is important because it's how you know you are dealing with a pattern, not just a preference. And the second question is, what did it protect me from the first time? So the proverb protected me. In the context that my mother was describing it, it was right. She needed to protect me as a child. She needed to know that when I was out there, I was not being a daredevil, so that I was staying safe and coming home to her. But standing out in certain environments at certain times, it carried real risk. The instruction made sense when it was installed. So the problem is not where the pattern came from. The problem is that the nervous system does not know the context has changed. It is still running in the same instruction in rooms that have nothing to do with lions. The third question is that protection still needed today? And this is the most important question because the pattern was useful once and at that time. It protected a younger version of you from a real threat that existed at the time. But you're not that version of you anymore. The rooms have changed. Your capability has changed. So the question is not whether the protection made sense then. It probably did. The question is whether it is still serving you now, or whether it has become the very thing holding you in life and you've already outgrown it. So I want to be honest with you. I've not fully overcome this. I do take up space now in ways I did not do before. I no longer want to feel small. I no longer disappear from rooms I've earned the right to be in. But I still do not shout my achievements to date. I'm still more comfortable when others speak for me than when I speak for myself. I'm still navigating the distance between humility as a value, which I genuinely hold to date, and invisibility as a program, which I'm still learning to distinguish from it. I'm teaching this from inside the process, not from on the other side of it. And I think it's important for you to know, because if you're still waiting for the woman who has figured this out, she's not who you need right now. You need the woman who is in it with you, seeing it clearly and doing the work, still navigating, and that is who I am. And that is what this session is about. A preacher said something that once cracked something open in me. He said, if you choose not to live your fullest potential, you are denying the world the capabilities that God put in you. I'd grown up believing that humility meant making yourself smaller, that standing out was prideful, that staying invisible was godly. But this reframed it completely for me. What if staying invisible was not humility? What if it was in fact a form of withholding yourself? What if the gifts placed in you were placed there for a reason, and staying small was not honoring the giver of the gift? That question changed something in me. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't change completely, but enough to take the first management position and enough to stop disappearing, enough to begin slowly, carefully, still uncomfortably taking up space. So the deer still remembers the proverb, but she is learning that not every open field has lions, and that sometimes the thing that feels dangerous is the unfamiliar. So this week, name your pattern in one sentence. Not an explanation, not a history, one sentence. Mine would be that I achieve the result, but I do not claim the authority. That's the pattern for me. What is yours? Then find 2 other times it showed up. Not the same situation, but the same choice at the center. And then answer question 3. And question 3 is this protection still needed today? Write it down, because what you can name, you can begin to change. My mother told me about the scared deer by a fireside chat in my local language, in the dark. She meant it as love. She meant it as protection. And it was about both of those things. But it also became a ceiling for me. Not because she put it there, but because the nervous system does not know the difference between a university demonstration and a boardroom, between a dangerous crowd and a promotion, between a lion and a congratulation. It just knows. This feels like standing out. And standing out is dangerous. So go home, be safe, stay intact. The Rewire is not about abandoning who your mother gave you, or what advice your mother gave you, or what you've learned over time. It's about understanding what the nervous system did with it, and deciding consciously, deliberately, as the adult you are now, which part to keep and which part to finally let slip. And that is Rewire. I'm Rose. Thank you for being here. Do leave a comment, name the pattern in one sentence, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. We have new episodes that come out every Tuesday. Look out for the next episode. Next week, we will go all the way back to the child who built the cage, to the fireside chat, to the stories told in your mother tongue that became the operating system of your adult life or your guiding light, and to what it actually looks like to begin changing that system and that foundation without losing everything that was good about where you came from. So I'll see you next Tuesday. Don't just listen, rewire.